It's good to see you today. Welcome to 3-Minute Manna. It is the Gospels Wednesday. Let's talk about the Pharisees and the man with the withered hand who Jesus heals in the synagogue on the Sabbath. In Luke's account, Luke chapter 6, verse 6, on another Sabbath he went into the synagogue, Jesus did, and was teaching, and a man was there whose right hand was shriveled. The Pharisees and the teachers of the law were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal on the Sabbath. The Pharisees, they didn't want to be taught. Jesus was there to teach. The Pharisees, they thought they had all the answers. Anytime someone thinks they have all the answers, the Lord's not going to be able to teach them. Now contrast that with the man with a withered hand. Why was he there? He was there because he wanted to be taught. In Luke's account again, down at verse 9, Jesus says to them, to the Pharisees, I ask you, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to destroy it? That's the thing. The Pharisees did not care about the law. They just cared about their man-made traditions, their man-made ideas. Jesus says in another place, if you would actually believe Moses, you would believe me. They didn't care about the law. They just cared about their own traditions. Compare that with the man with a withered hand. Anybody who wants to be taught, they want to be taught because they actually care about the law. They love the Lord's law. They love it. They want to meditate on it. They want to consume it. In Matthew's account now, in Matthew chapter 12, the Lord says to the Pharisees, if any of you has a sheep and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will you not take hold of it and lift it out? How much more valuable is a man than a sheep? And that's the thing. Those Pharisees, they would have lifted a sheep out of a pit without batting an eye on the Sabbath. But they did not want this man healed on the Sabbath. They did not value the man. They probably thought that he was sinful because of his hand. They thought he had sinned and had done something to deserve this crippling hand that he had, this crippled hand that he had. But the man, I would suggest the man, he knew how valuable his hand was. Understand, he knew how valuable that member of his body was. The Lord, as he's dealing with the Pharisees, he asks them the question, which is lawful, and they remain silent. Mark's account in Mark 3, at verse 5, he looked around at them in anger and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts. I would suggest that they did not like being singled out like that. Not saying that the Lord did something wrong. The Lord asked a question, and it was not a rhetorical question. He expected them to answer it. They remained silent, condemning themselves. The man, on the other hand, Jesus says to the man, stand up in front of everyone. And that man stood up in the middle of the synagogue in front of everyone with his withered hand. He obeyed the Lord. The Pharisees, they left, and they were so furious they began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. They left the synagogue full of wicked thoughts. The man who was healed, he came there to be taught because he loved the Lord's law, because he understood what he needed to do. He understood how valuable he was in that sense, looking out for himself, and he stepped out when the Lord told him to step out individually, and that man was healed from that day forward. Might make some applications. Hope you enjoyed this study. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow morning.